Like, there was like within 1 week I had to decide whether or not I wanted
like Tulane,
a record deal or to go to Tulane.
Yeah.
And you usually expect your parents to be like, no, like you have to go to college, get an education. My parents were like, fuck that, we don't want to pay $63,000 a year, so you should take the record deal. I had 3 songs out. Yeah, 3 songs out. I had 2 songs to play at the audition for Republic, and then they gave me the deal, so they really took a risk on me. My God. I was like super duper scared. I think the first thing I said was like, I'm not doing that shit. Like I was like, I don't want to, it's too scary, like it's this crazy pressure, and like I watched that show, I watched the Colbert Show all the time, so I was like, oh my God.
Hi, this is Lauren Engel. Today I'm here with Noah Kahan.
Hello.
So you're born in Strafford in Vermont?
Yeah, so I was born and spent the first like 6 years of my life in a town called Strafford, just about 1,000 people. I kind of balanced my time between New Hampshire and Vermont, but I grew up on a tree farm in Vermont. Yeah, so like 130 acres, really small town, lots of dogs and stuff. So yeah, kind of an idyllic Vermont childhood, I guess. Was
that your parents' jobs, like working on the tree farm, or was it just a hobby?
Tree farm is more of like an exciting name for basically what is government tax deductible. So basically we have like a shit ton of trees, so the government comes every 20 years and like takes some of them, and then we get money basically. So it's not as cool as it sounds. Lots of like birch trees, lots of maple trees, just mostly maple, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of cool. Like I've only seen the government come in and do it once in my life, but like there's like our property is like totally cleared out every time they do it. So yeah.
Wow,
crazy.
That's cool. What are your parents' careers then?
My mom is an author and she works in fundraising at Dartmouth College, and my dad is a computer networking consultant.
Oh, what kind of books does your mom write about?
My mom would write like self-help books for parents. So, and she would use like examples from our childhood. So she had a book called Teaching Your Kids About Sex. And she basically used like all the really embarrassing questions I asked about sex in the book. So like my entire childhood is pretty much on display.
Oh my gosh.
For everyone to see.
People, please find it on Amazon.
Yeah, right. She tried to hide it from me for a while, but I'd read the book and I'd be, wait a second. I'm pretty sure me and my brother asked this shit. And then she has one called Mom, the Toilet's Clogged, and like literally like the head illustration for the book is like a picture of a time when I stuffed my sister's like teddy bear down the toilet, and like a ton of like shit and stuff from the sewage came out and like spilled everywhere. So
oh my God. Yeah,
she's really putting me on blast. So Mom, if you're watching this, don't expose me like that, okay?
So they're both kind of academic people then.
Yeah, they're super brilliant, but they're also incredibly creative. Like my dad taught me to play the guitar, and my mom is an incredible author, so she taught me all about writing and, you know, being inspired, and there's always tons of music in the house. So really smart people who have a great sense of creativity, which is really good to help facilitate me writing and learning music, and they're always supportive of kind of me trying to achieve a career in the arts. So yeah, they're great.
Was your dad in any bands if he did guitar?
No, my dad wasn't blessed with the golden singing voice, but he taught me a few chords on the guitar. He just liked to play around the guitar. He's a guitar he's had for his whole life, and it's still in the house, and I started learning on that, and he taught me the first time. He played my first ever show with me at a senior old folks home. A song called Father and Son by Cat Stevens, which is to date my favorite song. So it was cool. The first show I ever played was with my dad, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
How do you describe your personality back then growing up?
Mine?
Yeah.
I think I was like really sensitive and also like super obnoxious, which is like a really annoying combination because you're mad at me for being obnoxious, then you feel bad because I'll start crying if you yell at me.
Oh yeah.
I think like I always had a pretty good sense of humor because my parents were really funny, and I have 3 siblings, so I was always getting like teased and stuff, so I have kind of pretty thick skin. But you know, we were like all like really funny kids. We grew up in like a funny kind of, my dad's Jewish, my whole family's Jewish, and they're always hilarious people, so we were always joking around, and yeah, I don't know, I guess class clown.
And what kind of music were your parents playing in the house when you were growing up?
I grew up, my mom would listen to like a ton of classic rock, but also a lot of folk music. She listened to guys like Paul Simon and Cat Stevens, who were really good at kind of telling a story with very little, just guitar, their vocals. And as an author, she loved storytelling, and in turn kind of put me onto storytelling. Guys like the Counting Crows and Ava Brothers, you know, the Bright Eyes were a huge inspiration for me, that my mom would always be playing around the house, and I thank her for kind of guiding my taste in music and eventually trying to write music like those guys.
Are your siblings creative as well, or are you kind of the more musical person?
No, well, my little brother's an amazing singer. My older sister thinks she's good at singing, but is so bad. My older brother's totally tone deaf, but they're all creative in different ways. Like my older brother is really crafty and good with his hands, and he like works with metal, and my sister's a doctor and she's a really studious brain. My little brother's like pretty amazing singer, and he's really artsy and cool. So yeah, there's a lot of creativity in the house for sure.
And back then you were doing a lot of like open mics and stuff. How did you get yourself out there initially to do these?
I think like I would just be, the first time I ever played when I was probably 11 years old, and I just thought it was so cool that I could go and play in front of people, and usually it would just be a bunch of people eating dinner, really annoyed by the fact that there's like an 11-year-old kid with a fucking girl's voice singing Jason Mraz, but I just loved it. I love performing. I like the feeling of doing it and being proud of myself, and you know, even when one person would clap, I would get like a rush. I'd be like, that's so cool that I can like, I can make one person think I'm good, and that was cool, and I just kind of chased that feeling for my whole life. And you know, there wasn't a ton of opportunity where I grew up, just because how small it is, but you know, I was playing almost every single night of the week.
Do you still have videos of
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was really bad. I actually look back and I used to think I was like really good. I was like, oh man, I killed that open mic and I sounded terrible. So I sometimes look over the videos and I'm like this little kid and the guitar is like way too big for me. Like, and it's just super funny. I'm just sitting there singing like Jason Mraz, or sometimes I sing Green Day and like the super depressing ass songs, and I'd be like a little kid with a squeaky voice singing it, so funny, yeah.
But back then you were also already writing your own original music, right? You didn't perform those?
Sometimes I started performing my own songs when I was around 13, because I started writing when I was 8, and I performed my first ever original song at a talent show at my elementary school, and it was called Wednesdays Are the Worst Days of My Life. And I didn't have a guitar. I just sang it a cappella in front of the entire school, like 500 people, and it was so depressing that the next day I had to get mandatory therapy from the school guidance counselor.
What?
They were like, what the fuck was that song you sang yesterday? Well, yeah, but it was like super depressing. And like, I still can't remember what I didn't like about Wednesdays, but like, I want to go back into my brain back then and be like, what was wrong with me?
What was wrong with Wednesdays? Oh my god. Did you like high school though?
I think it was tough because I never really had much of a direction or passion, and I was always bored, so I was kind of getting myself into trouble, and I don't know, I was never really very committed to studies and like paying attention in class, because I knew I wanted to be a musician. But I think looking back, a lot of the classes I did take were helpful for me. I went to Costa Rica in high school for a year. I learned Spanish, which was really cool, which has been amazing, knowing another language, and a lot of the creative writing courses I took kind of helped me out in my future career as a songwriter.
So you kind of knew from the onset that you wanted to make music your career. Where do you think you got this, I guess, confidence from? Because from Strafford there's only like 1,000 people. Like, how many people are able to make music their career?
I don't know. I just got like super lucky in a lot of ways. I mean, my entire life I never had a backup plan. I was never like, I didn't know what else I would do. I didn't really thought about it. I was kind of, I'll just end up being a musician somehow. And now kind of being in the industry, you see how unlikely that is for a lot of people, just regardless of talent, just because of how many people are trying to make music and how many people want to be musicians. So I never really thought of a backup plan. I was kind of just like mindlessly or blindly hoping I would end up having be successful. And I don't know, I just had a story. I had some songs I thought were good, and I put them online, and kind of miraculously got hooked up with a really amazing manager who...
Yeah, actually, it was from your like friends back then that introduced you to your manager, right? Or
well, but no. So basically, like, I would write songs in high school, and then I'd bring them to my friends who were like EDM producers, and they would like produce the songs.
High school friends? Or?
Yeah, friends from high school and people in town. And, they would produce the songs, and then I put them online. I put them on SoundCloud. I didn't really advertise them very much. I kind of just put them up there, and like somehow a manager just stumbled upon my music on SoundCloud and reached out to me, and kind of my life started to change and started to get a career.
What did your parents think of you wanting to do music and not really having a backup plan?
They were like, as long as we don't have to pay for college, go for it. Like, there was like within 1 week I had to decide whether or not I wanted
like Tulane,
a record deal, or to go to Tulane.
Yeah.
And you usually expect your parents to be like, no, like, you have to go to college, get an education. My parents were like, fuck that, we don't want to pay $63,000 a year, so you should take the record deal. So they were very supportive, and they've always been really supportive. They know this is what I want to do, and I'm just really not good at anything else. So it's kind of cool. They've always been supportive of me.
Mm-hmm. So actually, after you met your manager, how did that transition to the record deal?
Basically, he brought me to LA to cut some demos and to write, and to kind of like try to really get a song produced in a real, like, really nice home studio.
17?
I was 17, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is crazy and super like intimidating working with these people, and they have all their like records up on the wall.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit. So we did that, and then I went to New York and like played for a couple labels, and I played for Republic Records, and like 2 hours later they had offered me a record deal. So it all happened really quickly. Yeah, it was crazy.
How much music did you have out by that point?
I had 3 songs out. Yeah, 3 songs out. I had 2 songs to play at the audition for Republic, and they gave me the deal. So they really took a risk on me. My God. It was a song called Sync that got a lot of the attention. Mm-hmm. And it was just crazy. I don't know, it was crazy. I put it on SoundCloud, and like no one really was listening to it. Then one day, like I was getting thousands and thousands of plays, and that's kind of the song that Republic Records signed me off of. So yeah.
Were you also pushing your music with blogs, or how did people find you initially?
I wasn't pushing my music at all. I literally would post it on my personal Facebook page. I had like 400 friends on Facebook, and people in my town would listen to it sometimes. But that was it. I really didn't do any online marketing, just because I didn't know how, and I didn't understand what the reality was that you have to market your own music. Yeah, so I wasn't doing a lot of marketing. I was mostly just putting my music out there and letting it react the way it wanted to react, and kind of miraculously got picked up by somebody in a position of influence, and serendipitously started being shared and landed me with the right people.
Mm-hmm. And did any other record labels give you a deal, or was it Republic back then?
It was just Republic. So I went to a couple labels. I don't remember the specific labels, but they're all kind of like, it's too early.
Yeah.
We don't know. There's a lot of people that were trying to do the acoustic singer-songwriter thing, and so I didn't really get a chance from other people, but Republic were amazing and believed in what I was doing and gave me a chance, so I'm forever grateful for it. Actually,
looking back, were you kind of, I don't want to say afraid, but because you didn't even have much out, they could kind of like mold you, decide songs on your behalf, especially at 17. Did that cross your mind?
Looking back now, I think about how naive I was about the music industry and about what record labels are looking for. But back in the moment, I was just so excited by everything, and I was happy to do, whatever they thought was right. And now that I've kind of realized that they actually treated me really well, and they gave me every opportunity to create my own sound, and I should have been afraid of that, but it ended up being so great and working out so well that it never happened.
And then how long after did you meet Lord's producer?
So I met Joe Little in LA when I was kind of starting to do the songwriting with writers out in LA, and I was kind of getting sessions with some of the more like prominent songwriters out in LA, and he was one of the ones that had a lot of hype about, and he'd done Lord stuff, and he's done the Khalid stuff, and he's just such a huge talented songwriter. And I was super nervous, and I went to his house, and he was like the coolest dude in the world. Like we were just chilling, like drinking a beer at his house, having some coffee, and he was like such a personable, funny, down-to-earth dude from New Zealand. So we ended up becoming like really close personally, and then he liked my music, and kind of the rest is history. He's done all my songs, and we've written together, and he's a good friend, so it's kind of awesome. Actually,
what was it like going from writing all your songs alone and then being in these sessions, like sharing kind of vulnerable lyrics that you've been through? Was it difficult, or?
It is hard. It's hard because you have to like bare your soul to somebody, like right as you get into the room with them, and you don't always know them, and they can sometimes be in like this huge mansion and you feel intimidated and weird, or sometimes it's in a weird part of town or in a city you're not used to, so it can be strange. But I found that a lot of songwriters, they're waiting for you to show them who you are, and they want you to trust them, and they care about you, and they want you to expose yourself to them so that you can write the song that's as honest as possible. And all the great songwriters are willing to hear you and listen to you, and a lot of them sympathize with you because they've been through similar things.
And then how did you meet Julia Michaels?
So I met Julia at a like Napa Valley, like playing for a bunch of radio people kind of thing, where you basically play like a little show for a bunch of people who you want to play your song on the radio. And she was there, and then she reached out after I released Hurt Somebody as a single, and she wanted to cut a vocal on Hurt Somebody because she loved the song. And so the rest is kind of history. She cut the vocal, beautiful vocal, and ended up kind of transcending my career a little bit with her feature on the song. So I'm very grateful for what she did for me, and kind of the immense attraction people had to the duet we had in the song.
What was your reaction when you heard that you were going to perform on TV?
I was like super duper scared. I think the first thing I said was like, I'm not doing that shit. Like I was like, I don't want to. It's too scary. Like it's this crazy pressure, and like I watched that show. I watched the Colbert Show all the time, so I was like, oh my god. But it's kind of like a landmark for a lot of artists, I think, and it's when I kind of knew that like things were going so well, and I was mostly just like excited. I immediately started like mentally preparing for it. It was crazy. I remember the call, and usually my manager calls with some good news, and he'll be like, your song's screaming really well in like Vietnam, and I'm like, okay, thank you so much, bye. But he was like, I've got some good news. I'm like, all right, what? He's like, you're gonna be on Colbert on whatever, March 7th, and I was like, holy shit. So I freaked out. It was super, super dope.
And what's your inspiration behind Mess?
I wrote Mess kind of at a really overwhelming time in my life when I was struggling with aspects of being on the road and being away from my family and my friends and my dogs, and I felt like the semblance of real life experiences that I was having were kind of waning, and I wanted to write a song about how I felt in that moment, and about how the grass is always greener on the other side. And I wrote it in LA, and kind of just as a way to be therapeutic for myself, and it ended up actually turning into a pretty cool song. And you know, we cut it, and everyone at the label loved it, and I was lucky enough to be able to release a song that means a lot to me personally, so that's always kind of a victory as a songwriter.
And where are you based now?
I live in Vermont, back home, because I'm on tour all the time and I can't afford to live anywhere. I mean, I can afford to live somewhere else.
But you won't ever be there.
I'm never fucking there. So I'm like, I had a place in Nashville, and I was there like a month out of the year, and I was spending like $1,900 a month to live there, and it just ended up being like, why the fuck am I wasting all this money? And believe it or not, despite this corduroy jacket, I don't make any fucking money. So I needed to live. I live at home, and it's kind of cool. I got to go from like this crazy tourish like vibe to being at home in like a really peaceful small town with my folks and my dogs and people who I grew up with. So I love it.
Actually, does everyone? I guess everyone in your town like kind of knows who you are and follows everything, your career and everything. Yeah, my town's like incredibly supportive of me. They always have been, and they're all so cool. They're all so happy for me, and I just am so grateful for the support they've given me over the past few years and over my whole life, but especially now with the kind of craziness of my lifestyle. It's cool to come home and have people be thrilled for me about what I'm doing. Yeah, I love that. Actually, what are the inspirations for your music videos? I feel like they have some really cool storylines.
Right. I think what's important in the kind of music I make, where a lot of it's like kind of sad sounding, not to take myself super seriously in the way I present myself as an artist, and the music videos is a great opportunity to show a side of my personality that I think doesn't always get across in music. I think that there's a lot of humor to be had, and I like to do something funny. I think like for a song like Hurt Somebody, I like to take it super literally. Like I'm literally hurt in that video. Like I'm lying on the staircase, or just crashing my bike, or a song like False Confidence. The story behind that song was me feeling like I had to be somebody else all the time, so I literally wanted to dress up like different people. And then Mess, the song is actually just about me missing my fucking dogs. So we hired like 11 trained dogs, and we did a video with the dogs. So I think that's cool, just to be a little humorous with it. And I don't know, I love shooting my videos because they're never actually sad like the songs, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
And you've always had anxiety and depression, right? Since you were young, or was it just more recently?
I've always struggled with it. I think that the nature of the life I live and the unpredictability and kind of randomness of it has increased or furthered the symptoms of the anxiety and the depression. So it's something I'm kind of struggling with more in the lifestyle I live, but I'm also able to be public about it, and in doing that come to terms with it a little more and be honest with myself about it, which is important with mental illness. And as the stigma reduces in society, like people are able to deal with their symptoms. So yeah.
How do you deal with it now, and advice for other people who are going through the same thing?
I see a therapist. I do meditation. For me, exercising is so important.
Yeah.
And for me, I've really taken refuge in songwriting and just trying to understand myself through the lens of songs. It's very cathartic and therapeutic for me. And I think if you're struggling with depression or anxiety, being willing to admit to yourself that you need help is important. I think it's really hard to admit that something happening in your brain that's not necessarily visible or physical is real, but it is real. So you gotta admit it to yourself. Gotta reach out to those around you, and not be afraid to get help.
Yeah, so true. How do you say your music has changed compared to the early songs you made?
I think I was struggling to find my voice and what I really wanted to say. When I first started making music, I was kind of trying to sound like what I thought I liked, and now I have a real story to tell, and I have a real passion for honesty and explaining my situation, and kind of dealing with the intricacies of anxiety and depression, and making that the focus of my music.
How would you say you've grown as a person compared to when you were younger?
I think I've definitely matured in terms of the way I treat myself and the way I see the world. I think that I didn't get much of a chance to see all these different cities and countries and when I was younger, and now that I've gotten to see the world, I've gotten a better perspective on things. I'm able to be more knowledgeable about culture and just about the world in general.
Outside of anxiety and depression, what do you say have been your biggest challenges in life?
I think the biggest challenge has been kind of navigating the world I'm in now as a songwriter and as an artist. There's a lot of stress and a lot of struggle and a lot of trying to put pressure on yourself, and I think living up to some of that pressure has been a struggle for me, and kind of internalizing it and dealing with it has been hard. But you know, every day I get a chance to challenge myself and overcome something. So yeah, it's an opportunity for me to overcome.
What does love mean to you?
Love to me is a feeling that is self-affirming. So you don't need to ask yourself if you're in love. You can feel it. I think if you're in love with something or someone or an animal or a pet or a place, you just know it in your heart, and it's in your subconscious, and you never have to question it.
Last question, what do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered as somebody who made music that made a difference to people. I think it's so easy just to get caught up in trying to sound a certain way or trying to say something that's going to give you popularity, and I think that my goal is to make music that's going to inspire and change people's feelings.
Yeah, I love it. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Bye.